study that I'll be talking about today in relation to the entire body of previous mediumship research, which is not terribly large, has several upgrades, I guess we could call them. The mediums that participated in this study are pre-screened and certified versus just claimant mediums that participate in other studies. Each item in each reading was scored for accuracy in the study, and there are additional levels of blinding beyond what has been previously reported. The protocol that we use is Quintuple-Blind. It has 5 levels of controls that account for all the normal, local, sensory explanations for the accuracy of the statements that the mediums provide. So in this Quintuple-Blind protocol, we start with the medium, but it's not any old medium off the street. Like I said, we pre-screen our mediums. David Fontana, author of the book Is There an Afterlife, emphasized the, quote, obvious necessity to have trial runs with mediums and then to work only with those mediums who appear to perform well. So at the Windbridge Institute, we use an 8-step screening and training procedure, at the end of which, if someone successfully completes these 8 steps, then they're termed a Windbridge Certified Research Medium. So for this study, the most important step is step 5, which are the test readings, which use protocols that mimic what the mediums go on to participate in the study that I'll be talking about today. So we start in this protocol with a blinded research medium, and at a scheduled time, I call the medium. During the reading, it's just the medium and me on the phone. There's no sitter involved. The mediums are all over the country. And I have been emailed the first name of a deceased person, a discarnate, by a research assistant. And so all that the medium and I have is this first name of the deceased person. So I give the name to the medium, and then she does a reading. So the discarnate's name is Susie, and then we do a Susie reading. And then on a different day, we have a different name, and we do it again. During those readings, I ask the medium to report the answers to these 4 questions. What did the discarnate look like in his or her physical life? Describe the personality of the discarnate. What were the discarnate's hobbies, activities, or interests? And what was the discarnate's cause of death? So after the readings take place, then I transcribe and format each reading into a list of numbered items, and I have removed all reference to either of the names in either of the readings. And then each of those lists of items is sent to each of the 2 associated sitters, the living people who have lost and want to hear from the 2 discarnates. So each of the 2 readings are sent to each of the 2 sitters. So each sitter serves as a control for the other sitter. So each sitter scores a target reading and a decoy reading, but they don't know which is which because they're just called A and B. So for each 2 readings, we get 2 sets of scores. And during scoring, the sitters answer this question about each item in each reading. So how well does the information fit? And they can score it as obvious fit, fit requiring minimal or more than minimal interpretation, fit, it fits someone other than the named discarnate, or it doesn't fit at all, or I don't know, I don't have enough information to gauge the accuracy of the statement. When we calculate the % accuracy, we tally up the items that were scored obvious fits, fits requiring minimal interpretation, then we divide that by the total items minus the I don't knows, and then that's the number that we call hits. That's the % accuracy. At the end of scoring each item in the reading, the sitter also gives the entire reading 1 score from 0 to 6, 6 being excellent reading, including strong aspects of communication and with essentially no incorrect information, down to 0, which is no correct information or communication. And then we ask each sitter, pick the reading which seems to be more applicable to you. Even if they both seem equally applicable or non-applicable, pick one. So there's item scores, whole reading scores, and then forced choice. That's all the data that we collect for each reading. So as an example, in this case, sitter 1 might give A a 5 and B a 2, and 2 might give A a 1 and B a 4, and then they might make these choices. That's a kind of indicative of the kind of numbers that we see. excuse me, so the 5 levels of blinding in this quintuple-blinded protocol, the research medium is blinded to all information about the sitters or the discarnates before, during, and after the reading. The sitters are, again, each blinded to the origin of the reading during scoring. Again, they don't know which one's the target and which one's the decoy. The experimenter who interacts with the sitters initially during consenting and training on the scoring procedures is blind to which mediums are going to read which sitters, which item lists go with which discarnates, etc. The experimenter who interacts with the medium is blinded, that's me, is blinded to all information about the sitters and the discarnates beyond the first name of the discarnates. And then the third experimenter who interacts with the sitters during scoring is blinded to which are the target and which is the decoy for each sitter, which mediums perform which readings, etc. So everybody pretty much is blind to everything. And this quintuple-blind protocol controls for all the normal explanations that so-called skeptics cite as being explanations for the accuracy of medium statements. It can't be fraud because there's no way this medium can, search through the trash for your credit card number. All they have is the first name of the deceased person. I can't cue the medium. I can't steer the reading, even if I wanted to. We joke, the medium can't say, I'm getting pain in my head. I think that and I can't say, do you mean kidney cancer? I can't do that because I only have the first name. So cueing is out. It can't be cold reading since the medium and the sitter never interact with each other. The statements, one explanation that skeptics cite is, the statements are so general they could apply to anyone. All she said was, their person misses you and they love you. But we specifically asked the medium to answer questions, so it can't be general because we sort of force them to answer these specific questions. And then rater bias is out because the sitters rate the readings without knowing which one is theirs. And then we look at the difference in a rater's score of the target reading and their score of the decoy reading. In addition, we never give the mediums any feedback during this study. So it begins to address precognition as explanatory for the results because we don't give them any feedback. They can't look into a future time in which we told them which items were correct. So let's talk about some data. The data that I'll talk about today is from an ongoing study. 14 certified mediums have participated for a total of 28 readings exceeding 2,000 items. Each reading was between 31 and 131 items with a mean of 74. Of the 28 pairs of readings that we sent out for scoring, only 23 pairs came back and only 21 had usable data. So we'll talk about those 21 pairs of data today. So for the overall score that the sitters gave the whole reading, the average score given to target readings was significantly higher than the average score given to decoy readings. The p-value is 0.001. It's a high p-rep and a large effect size. And then 16 of 21 people chose the target reading as their own. Again, a significant p-value of 0.01. And if we look at overall all of the items in each reading, the overall percent accuracy, the scores given to the target readings were significantly higher than the scores given to decoy readings. Again, without knowing which was which when the sitters did the scoring. The p-value is 0.01 for that with a relatively high p-rep and a medium effect size. And if we look at the item percent accuracy by those 4 questions that we ask, the target percent accuracy was higher than the decoy for physical description and hobbies, quite significantly, 0.008 and 0.0006. It just hit significant for cause of death at 0.05, and it approached significant for personality at 0.06. Some other data that I looked at was the relationship between the overall score and the percent accuracy, and there was a high degree of relation. So it appears that the overall score is indicative of the overall percent accuracy of a reading. That one score does seem to mean something. I also looked at if there was a relationship between the items per reading and accuracy. I had thought that the shorter readings would be more accurate, but then I thought, I think that's because those are so much easier to perform and transcribe. The ones with 31 items versus the ones with 131 items. So I think that was my own personal bias, and when I ran the numbers, it didn't turn out. So the number of items per reading was not related to overall score or percent accuracy. So these data all support the existence of the phenomena we call anomalous information reception, or AIR, which is the phenomenon where certain mediums can report accurate and specific information about deceased individuals with no prior knowledge about the deceased people or the sitters, with no feedback during, or in this case after, the reading either, and without using fraud or deception. So this data is indicative of some sort of non-local transfer of information about deceased people, but with this data we cannot say that it comes from deceased people. So there are two prevailing head-to-head arguments about what it is. So on the one hand, survival of consciousness. The deceased people have survived the death of their bodies, and they are communicating with the mediums just like you or I would communicate with them. And then on the other hand is the explanation of psi. The medium is using telepathy or clairvoyance to get the information about the deceased people. And we can collect this type of data till the end of time. It will never let us distinguish between those two items. The content of the information can never let us determine the source. We can always say it's anomalous. They got it from somewhere that wasn't through local sensory means, but we can't discern the source from the content. We get a lot of emails from people saying, I have solved the survival versus psi debate. I did it. I know how to do it. And these are the things that they usually say. A medium reported to me information I didn't know at the time, but later I looked at, I was able to verify it. I looked it up, or I talked to people, and indeed it was true. So that's clearly survival. Nope, that's precognition. That can easily be explained as precognition, because once you verify it, now it exists. Now you know it. So it still can fall under the psi heading. The other one is, the medium reported information that only the discarnate knew, but then you have to look it up to verify it, and at that point, it is now in the pool for precognition to get a hold of it. And then even with physical mediumship, which we do not study yet at the Windbridge Institute, it's not. People will report physical mediumship as evidence of survival, but psychokinesis is also an explanation that could be put forth for that. However, though the content of the information cannot help us distinguish between the two, the medium's actual experiences can. So historically, mediumship research involved trance mediums who were unconscious, and a spirit entity took over the body and talked through the medium's physiology and anatomy. And so they had no conscious recollection of what was happening during the readings. The mediums today that we work with are mental mediums, so they have they're fully conscious during the readings, and their experiences are, during part of their services that they offer to clients, they do psychic readings for the living. So they know what psi feels like, and according to their reports, this feels different. This feels like communication. And so we have engaged in an entire research program where we're systematically looking at the medium's experiences. During one study, a medium concisely put it, a psychic reading is like reading a book, and a mediumship reading is like seeing a play. So they're very, very different experiences. So the mediums, personally, in their personal experience, they can clearly distinguish between survival and psi. So again, we have an entire research program dedicated to systematically looking at the experiences of the mediums. That's a story for another day. I only had 15 minutes. I do have some handouts. If you're interested, you can grab a handout from me, or there's a lot of information on our website about this. So at this time, we cannot answer these questions. Are mediums communicating with the deceased, or do they get their information using psi? And can the mind exist without the body? Is there life after death? I want to thank the other Windbridge researchers, Mark, Adam, Mike, and Chad, especially Chad, since he is currently at our house babysitting our sweet dog. I want to thank the SSE for having me, all the Windbridge Certified Research Mediums who participated, the Windbridge Institute Scientific Advisory Board, the Bial Foundation, and the Windbridge Institute members for their support. And thank you all for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Julie. We have 5 minutes for question. We'll begin with Mark.
Thanks, Julie. Interesting talk. I just had another question about your protocol. Obviously, good attention to blinding. Do the sitters know that one of these readings that they're going to look at is the, quote, real one and one is a control? Could they both be controls? Could they both be, quote, real from different mediums? What do they know about that?
We tell them that one is intended for them and one is not, but without fail, I get a lot of responses of neither of these mediums talk to my person. So not only do they not recognize or did they not remember or understand that not only is it one medium doing both of those readings, but only one was even supposed to be yours. So we do tell them one of these is yours, because when we say pick which one you think is yours, it would give it away at that point. So we do tell them. You're going to score them each as to how they apply to your person, but only one of them was, only one was the name of your person actually given to the medium.
Kathleen Barrett did a dissertation that looked not only on the phenomenological experience of mediums, but also of the beings they were channeling.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting. So you may want to look at that dissertation.
Yeah.
The fact that you had the lowest score rate on personality is, to me, the strongest evidence I've ever seen that this is coming from a discarnate source, because generally speaking, people have a very poor concept of their own personality. And if it's a stranger who's analyzing it, they're more apt to be accurate.
That's very interesting.
Indirectly, that's the most strong evidence I've seen that you're actually getting it from the source.
Because when we saw it, we thought the opposite. Like, oh no, this is very indicative of psi, because they're not getting the. Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of. Thank you for that. I hadn't thought of it that way.
The notion of mediumship as communication implies that the discarnate is cooperating in the process somehow. Have you thought of addressing the survival versus psi hypothesis by looking at the belief system, philosophy, or religion of the discarnate to see if there's a difference in accuracy rates between discarnates who might be expected to actively cooperate versus those who, given their beliefs in life, would probably resist or be hostile?
When we screen sitters, we ask the question because we want to optimize, in addition to maximizing controls, we want to optimize the conditions. So people say, why don't you use skeptics as sitters? Well, if I was dead and you were saying to me, this is all bunk and I want to hear from Julie, why would I waste my time coming to talk to you? So that doesn't optimize the process. So one of the other things that we do is we ask the sitters, do you think, in your opinion, do you think this person will want to come and talk to you? And we only work with the people who answer yes. But just anecdotally, we do get, when we ask for personality, and a lot of spontaneous things come up that don't fall into these categories of these questions. We do often hear like, yeah, this person would not have been cool with this at all when they were alive. So spontaneously, we are getting that some people, and the same thing with, they were really into this sort of thing when they were alive. So we do get both sides, and I haven't looked at correlating that with accuracy. But I have seen both.
Okay. It seems clear that the sitters have the sense that the reading that they're getting addresses the specific person they're interested in. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you could share with us some of the experiences that the sitters have upon hearing not just identification material, but messages, as it were, communications from the discarnate, and really kind of what the personal or spiritual value is that they take from the experience of receiving this communication.
this is also very blinded that it's all through email, so that sitters just get sent the readings and then they can make comments and send them back, but we're not looking at those specifically. And we do have a third research program that we're interested in where we look at the effect of mediumship readings on grief. And so we have an entire research program to look at that. And I have handouts for that too, if anyone wants to look at that, where we're looking at the effect on the sitter.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.